Hi, everyone. I just want to say welcome and thank you for joining us. We're here today with 4 people from the construction industry who are here to share with you some insights about how this COVID challenge is impacting the industry overall, and also specifically in Denver in some cases. But we're very happy to have these guests. But students, I want to encourage you to start loading questions in the Q&A platform as we speak. Towards the end, we're going to give at least 20 minutes for you to have your questions shared. And how that's going to happen is Cece Smith is on with us, and she's going to be scanning your questions. And towards the end, like I say, she will pull some of those questions and provide those for the panelists. So let me go ahead and introduce everyone on the panel. So first I'll start with Jim Anslover, and Jim is Director of Continuous Improvement at Lennar Homes. So we've got a representative from the residential market, home building market. We have Clay Benson, who's Market Director for the Denver Operating Group with Mortenson Construction. Scott Conrad, Senior Vice President and Regional Manager with Swinnerton, and Brian Cook, Chapter Operations Director with the AGC Colorado. And so I think this will give us a pretty good insight as to what's happening in the construction and construction management fields and home building. So I'm going to start with the first question if everybody's ready. And the first 3 questions for sure, I'd like every one of the panelists to take a stab at it and give us your insights. And then we'll see where we are at that point and decide whether it's time to open up for the students, or I may ask one follow-up question. But the first one is just really to share with us, each of you, to share with us the overall impact of COVID on the construction industry, not just in Denver, but across the country, if you have knowledge of that as well, which a couple of you are national companies, or all 3 of you are actually national companies. So, and then Brian's got a perspective for Denver that I know will be definitely interested in. So how about we start with Jim?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to the panel. Being at Lennar Homes, the largest home builder in the country, we have 1,300 active communities throughout the nation. And you think about what that means on a daily basis dealing with COVID. And as all construction companies have realized and participated in, we were an essential business. Therefore, we were able to continue selling, starting, closing homes. But what that means on a daily basis, our constituency between our associates, our trade partners, inspectors, and customers, we probably have about 170,000 people every single day somewhere going through our job sites. So for us, the safety of all of those individuals was paramount. And so we pivoted immediately to deal with the issues of COVID. But sales dropped the second week of March pretty bad. But since then, the last 4 weeks, we've had continuous sales increases. And our sales and starts are actually above pre-COVID levels. So we've had a dip. We're now pushing back up above pre-COVID levels as far as starts and closings. So that's kind of how we've kind of the impact initially and where we sit today.
Sounds great. Let's just go on down the line here in alphabetical order. Clay, how about your perspective?
Absolutely. So at Mortenson, the first couple of weeks, last couple of weeks in March, we were updating our project-specific COVID action plans on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day, as we learned how to keep our projects active, keep our crafts safe, keep our offices safe. Our office in Denver and actually our other regional offices, we are just starting to come back. We pretty much went to work from home for all our regional offices just until this last week. And so we're coming up with strategies to allow our office staff to come back. And then, it impacted our business we do a lot of hospitality, hotel work, and that market just shut down. And so we had several active projects get canceled. We've also seen it impact our aerospace customers. So less the space side, but more the aircraft side. So with Boeing and Airbus both being shut down, we've seen dramatic decreases in production within our aircraft customers. And so has done that. And, our nationwide, so it has affected each regional office a little bit differently. Because we were so invested in hotel and hospitality here in Denver, we saw more impact than our other regional offices. Our federal contracting group has seen a significant increase in business, as well as our wind and solar businesses are going full speed and getting more projects every day.
So it varies not only across the country, but it's varying with each sector as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. How about you, Scott? What are you seeing?
Well, I guess I'll segue off of what Clay was sharing, and that is that we're seeing different impacts both geographically across the country. Swinnerton's does about $5 billion worth of work a year from the West Coast through the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic. It was really remarkable through this process how you really analyze how different market sectors are influenced. To Clay's point earlier, hospitality and aviation got crushed, but healthcare, industrial work, senior housing, or some of the adaptive reuse projects, we saw some of those projects remain strong. So it really kind of depended on where we were geographically, and then whether or not that office had a diverse book of business that was able to balance both the up markets and the down markets. I guess to Jim's point, as an essential business, or the great number of our projects were deemed essential depending on what jurisdiction we were working in, the actual impact to the field was relatively modest. Of that $5 billion worth of work, we really only lost about $500 million worth of contracts that were going forward. And I'm only estimate that maybe 80% of the other projects did continue in some capacity, although it was certainly impacted by the productivity impacts of social distancing and focus on deep cleaning and disinfection and all those other things we're working on. So I guess my point was some markets were hit much harder than others, and some geographies were hit much harder than others.
So that brings us to you, Brian. You can tell us about Denver, right?
Yeah, I'd like to start just kind of going off of Scott on some of those regional numbers. And one we use a lot is our Architectural Billing Index. And what we saw that from American Institute of Architects, that it hit a record low in March it was down at 29.3%. But what kind of the silver lining is here in the West region, we had the highest score of 38.1. So there is, the West is doing a little bit better than, I think Scott kind of mentioned that, but we are having some upticks. It's still not good. I mean, when you think about a 50, anything below a 50 is showing that it's declining on future work. And that's what we use to see kind of, that crystal ball on what's going to be designed by the architects. But as far as a trade association and AGC, kind of going off what Jim, Scott, and Clay all talked about is, I had the opportunity to work with all these companies when it came to this kind of crisis management. And one thing I say about it, kind of being shoulder to shoulder with these firms, is that they knocked it out of the park. I mean, to be able to as things were changing by the hour from our Colorado Department of Labor and Public Health, the industry with all kind of came together, took their hard hats off, and really tackled these issues, and it was amazing to see. And so I guess my thought for the students that are on the call today is just say, you're coming into an amazing career pathway by coming into construction, because it really is a team effort, and especially here in this region when you see that we had 4 different task forces that all were addressing different challenges. One was on inspections and permits. They were, as inspectors didn't feel comfortable coming on the sites, this task force reached out to do best practices, how to get them on the site to be able to continue to keep the jobs open. So Another silver lining that I've seen and just heard in the last couple of weeks is on the Metro Denver Chamber of Commerce. They said they had 36 folks, firms that were looking at the metro area as far as making the, maybe a move or a change, growth in the area. None of those 36 have canceled their visits or so that's a good sign. We are going to have some headwinds as we move in, into the, first quarter of 2021. And we'll talk more about that later, but I still say, and even we got an update from Aurora Economic Development Corp this week, and they said the same thing, that there's a lot of activity going on right now. So I think Denver's positioned to come out of this, sooner than others. So,
yeah, very good. So one of the things I was hearing from a company that I was speaking to a few weeks ago, they kind of said the same thing, that there's certain markets that they're seeing that are actually in an uptick mode. And they also made reference to public work versus private work. And that, what do you see in the form of the public and private work? And I think it was Clay who said your federal group is moving forward. What do we see on a municipal side in Denver, for example, or the region? Not just federal, but state work, university work, those sorts of things. Because I know our projects on campus, for example, they have kept going and they're still working and completing those projects. And I'm just curious if there's any other sectors of the market that you're seeing that you think haven't been hit that hard and are continuing on and probably will.
So Barbara, this is Brian. And, I got an update from a member today that does a lot of churches, and they were saying that churches are taking a pretty big hit, because you imagine if you're not in the pews, you're probably not making a donation. And if you're not making a donation, you're probably not going to want to, put a west wing or addition onto that church. Another member, that I talked with today said that it's a subcontractor that's doing work in the mountains, and kind of going off Clay, it was a firm that does a lot of the hospitality and kind of residential in the mountains, said they're taking a pretty big hit in the mountains. But they said that here in Denver, it's things are going fairly well. So that's just kind of from, update from two of the members that I got a chance to talk to on the phone today about some of the things they're seeing kind of personally.
Yeah, on the residential side too, Jim, one of the things I've seen, and we're getting inquiries for students often, is the mortgage business. Mortgage lending is like through the roof, I understand, and refinance business and all of that. So they inquire about our students on a regular basis. What's the impact is it having on new housing?
Well, it's amazing. I mean, the mortgage business is extremely busy for the reasons you mentioned. We're at historic lows as far as interest rates. In fact, to move some of our inventory, we were offering interest rates at 2.75% fixed, which is unbelievable, almost free money. And so that's spurred a lot of business, both retail, refi, and our business. But speaking of trends, like talk about movements of sectors, we're seeing a lot of renewed interest in customers coming from the city core out to our suburb communities, just because they want to be away from people and create more space in their living condition. So our Texas region, sales of homes below 250,000 are just on fire. There's still a demand for the lower end. Our upper end, of course, takes a little bit of pressure, but we're seeing a lot more interest from renters that were comfortable before renting, now want to be out of an apartment complex, to allow more space and privacy for the safety of their home and the area around it, which is really a result of the virus pushing people away.
Yeah, that's interesting, because there was such a trend towards the urban dwelling environment, especially among young people, but this has changed a lot of things in terms of density and all of that. So, all right. One of the other things we're interested in is, what has your particular company's approach been, response and strategy been to the challenge of COVID, in terms of, are you holding tight with your workforce? Are you laying people off? Are there furloughs? Are there salary reductions, deferred salary? How are you handling just maintaining workforce during these times, or not? And if I could start, let's just start with Scott on this one.
Sure. Great question. And every organization is structured a little bit differently. I think in our case, you always got to play the long game. And in our case, we have not made salary reductions. We have not had reductions in force. We have not had furloughs. We are not likely to be hiring as many new people in the next couple of years as we had originally contemplated. But the fact is that we want to make sure that we're looking forward to our succession plans and our organization in 3 and 4 years. And if we contract or don't go and seek the talent now, we're going to have holes in the organization when the market improves. So looking at the long game has given us a confidence to stay the course. Now I will go on to say that oftentimes you can use these times to look inward at your organization. So we have made some adjustments and lost some underperforming people. So we've made some decisions to cut some underperforming people and replace them with the rock stars that are maybe in the marketplace today that wouldn't have otherwise been. So where our organizational staffing count remains the same, we're actually trading up.
Okay. So somewhat of a realignment as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How about you, Clay? What's happening at Mortenson?
So unfortunately, Mortenson, so we're thinking that the market's going to be smaller moving forward. And so we have roughly 10 operating groups nationwide. And so we've had, depending on the operating group, a reduction in force and salary people of 5 to 10%. Again, some of that would be natural attrition of underperformers. But we actually this time, and I've been with Mortenson 15 years and they've never done this. And in talking to others, Mortenson in over 30 years has never really done this. So this is unprecedented for us in our recent history. We actually got into some of the meat of the organization. I mean, when you're in that 5 to 10% range, you're getting rid of people who are talented. And unfortunately that happened. And it came across the organization. We were very careful, as Scott mentioned, that you don't want to take your younger talent out and create a hole in your organization later on. And so really the reduction in force was kind of across the entire organization, in all departments, all, tenured groups, everything. And so because we just don't feel like the market is going to be as big as it was in each one of our regions. And so that was unfortunate for us. But we just felt like it was the right thing to do. And again, knowing that who's here now are our strongest people. Yeah. Yeah. How about for Lennar, Jim?
Yeah, it's interesting. Our response, in the first week of March, we had a fellow employee pass away from COVID in Seattle. Mm-hmm. And based off on the records, we believe he was the 3rd or 4th person in America that passed away from the disease. So that kicked our response into an immediate hyper mode, realizing this is right in front of us and we saw this happening in our family. We went and hired a chief medical officer and that doctor joined our executive team to provide counsel and medical direction on everything we did. Within a week, we implemented a 10-point plan for our response in the offices, in the job sites, and that plan stays true today. So for us, that was important. It was important for us to help our trade partners. And so with the CARES Act that was passed, there was that Paycheck Protection Plan. We, within 3 or 4 days, had conference calls on a Sunday. We had 4,000 trade partners call in on Sundays for 2 conference calls with our tax consultants, our VPs of finance, our CEO and COO to help them navigate through the challenges of the PPP program to protect their workers as well. Similar to Scott and to Clay, we've been navigating this on a market by market basis. I will say we have not had what I would call significant furloughs, significant layoffs, but Scott hit it right on the head. You take this opportunity, if you do need to make those cuts, identify those maybe lower performers and trade up. And that's true. And so we're not currently in a hiring mode. We'll talk more about that later in the questions, but but nonetheless, we've not experienced large layoffs or reductions or that kind of thing.
So Brian, one of the things I know, I presented a couple times actually to AGC organizations talking about workforce, and workforce has been a challenge pre-COVID. It's definitely been a challenge. We're down, I've seen numbers as high as 300,000 people in construction. We're down labor-wise and workforce-wise. We've been down that currently. And the anticipation was about 780,000 additional lagging workforce needs by 2026. But what do we were already in the hole, so to speak,
Right.
with workforce. And now we see this happening. And we're getting a variance in terms of how different construction companies are seeing the future. As Clay said, they're seeing that the market isn't going to come back as strong as it was. It'll be a smaller market. Other companies I'm hearing are seeing other things, not necessarily that it's larger, but they're trying to find the backfill for that workforce that was missing in the first place. What is AGC's view on it all?
Yeah, so some of the numbers for locally here in Colorado, we are at currently prior to COVID around 180,000 construction workers here in Colorado. Colorado Department of Labor says that we need to be around the BLS. We need to be around 220,000 by 2027. So we needed to add 40,000 construction workers, and that's not including baby boomers that are retiring out of the industry. And so with that, our Construction Education Foundation, has taken this opportunity to really kind of put the pedal, the gas on, the pedal down and really take advantage of this, because as Scott was talking about, this really is a long play as we're looking at high school students that we need in the field as kind of that, work-based learning in the high schools. That's a 3-year play before, a year or two before they graduate high school, 3 or 4 years in an apprenticeship program, and they're coming into the field. So we think it's an opportunity. People are looking at change, and it's no better time than now as they look around and saw that construction was essential, even though, as Clay says, we are going to take a little bit, we're going to slow down, but we still, give us 18 months and we'll be back, and especially here in Colorado, and we're going to need those folks. It'll take 18 months to train them to get them there. So for us, we're not going to slow down because we can't afford. We're so far behind that we can't afford not to get aggressive. And so we're in, here locally and just in the metro area in 7 high schools, and we're going to add some high schools for the new, the 2021 school where we're bringing the shop class back in. So there's going to take funds to do that, but we're kind of betting on that workforce need to be here for years to come.
Yeah. Well, the thing for our graduating seniors and also our graduating master's degree students, what they're interested in right now in particular is what it looks like for your hiring and recruitment process and even internships. We've heard a mix. So what I've heard is some students have had offers and those offers have been rescinded. Some have been put on hold. Others are still intact from construction companies in particular. They're still intact, but they're going to be a delayed start till August perhaps instead of June and things like that. So we've got a mix. So students, again, some students had landed very good jobs and they've still got them. Others are hearing that it's frozen or it's been taken back. What are your companies looking at in terms of new hires or internships, your internship programs and your new hires? Is that business as usual? Anybody you made an offer to, they've still got it, or what has happened for each of the 3 companies? And then Brian can give me an overview of what he's hearing. How about we start with Clay this time?
Yeah, so we haven't had any impact on our interns other than what has been from the universities themselves. So some of the universities actually had their internships end or request that they had their interns work from home and not be on the job site. And so we saw some of that, but we've continued to have our interns working for us and anticipate, through the semester, we have some 6-month interns that will go through the summer, and our interns that we're coming this summer, we're working where we can. Our full-time offers that were for students that graduated in May of this year, we are standing behind those, and those jobs are in place. We've asked those who are interested, who some wanted some time in the summer. We're having the official start date be August 1st versus June 1st. But this is where we really believe in the long play, is we are going to continue to hire from the college graduates. We're going to continue to support the internship program because, again, that's our future. And we had that strategy in 2008, 9, and 10. And some of our best and brightest right now within the company came from those classes. And so we're all in on internships and new hires.
Very good. That's good news. How about at Swinnerton, Scott?
Yes, much the same. And I guess I'll take this opportunity just to make this plug as to how powerful internships in the industry are, whether you're with Clay or Jim or us, whomever, that these internships are hugely important for our students to gain that insight into the industry and to see who's out there. It's also our most significant recruiting tool. And we leverage that internship to meet students early in their college years. So we're keeping that program going full speed. I guess the only interesting thing is we were a little concerned back in March and April as to how some of the interns and new hires would feel about coming into an industry and into an organization with all these additional variables and just changes in the world. So we kind of put out this soft comment saying, so, yes, you're signing up for an intern this summer in our Atlanta office or our Austin office, wherever it may be, and that internship is still available for you. It's going to be a little bit different because of a combination of work from home and the office, different things you're going to be doing. So we couched it that your internship could be a little bit different, but it's still available if you want it. But we wanted to create the avenue for students to opt out if for any reason they were uncomfortable. Nobody opted out. Every they're like, oh yeah, I'm in. So we have a full class this summer, and it's always a great to expose them to the industry.
Yeah. What about your new hires?
Same thing. I think just like Clay said, we have we have some really good new hires through all of our offices. Many of our new hires came through our internship program, and it's full steam ahead with our entry level positions and our interns.
Very good. Very good. And that's in all the different markets?
In our case, I think we have
Yep.
15 or 16 offices, Barb, and I think that's exactly the case. I mean, like Lennar, like Mortenson, Swinnerton, all three large, well-capitalized companies working nationwide, and we're able to support those entry-level opportunities for the long-term benefit of the organization. So it hasn't really influenced our entry level.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hearing from many of the commercial companies. What's happening at Lennar, Jim?
A little bit different story. Although Clay said it earlier, it feels like offices are getting back to work, getting back to maybe back to business, and looking at the business of running it in pre-COVID or post-COVID world. So what we did when this all kind of hit was we paused everything. We said, hold on. We had a number of candidates that were in every stage you mentioned, Barb, either accepted or in talks or internship, going to start one. And we basically reached out to all of them and said, we just are not quite sure where this market's going to go. And we have to, we have a sensitivity to a candidate. The last thing you ever want to do is hire somebody or make an offer and rescind it. That's a horrible feeling for everybody. Yeah. So anyway, I would say we're in a pause right now. But as I mentioned earlier, that pause was generated at a time when we weren't sure where the sales were going to go, and the confidence of our public to come out to our sales centers. So that's where we're at now, but I would say that once we get back to work, there's probably some different feelings going on.
Yeah. And like you shared that things are going great guns in Texas, for example, in different parts of the country. So, and were you experiencing before COVID? I presume you were, but on the commercial side, we know the workforce issue has always been a challenge, and I presume it's going to be, was a challenge also in the residential market. And particularly the trades and all of those sorts of support that you can't live without. There seemed to be tremendous workforce shortage there as well.
You know that, well, that was one of our concerns, was that if we weren't deemed essential and the workers didn't show up and didn't come to work, it's almost like the nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty. We can't put this all back together again. If the workforce left, I don't know how we would gather it back together. So
Yeah.
it wasn't just about housing as an essential service and housing people for their safety and their shelter. We were concerned about the well-being of our overall vendor pool across the country. So that was critical to keep it all together.
Yeah, and is it staying together?
It is. I mean, it was funny that our cycle times have increased. I mean, have improved. So we're actually building faster. And we have only one trade in the home at a time, but we're building in a faster cycle time. It's almost like the focus has gotten more laser focus on the job sites, and people know they have to get in, get out, be safe, and do it right the first time. There is no tomorrow. It's your day is today. To show up and get it done. And so we've reduced cycle time a week and a half in many markets.
Wow. And that's interesting. So, you know, to look at what the positive, like the improvements and the positive things that come out of all this. And that you just shared one of them, that this idea of get in, get out, and get her done.
Yeah.
You know, I saw that years ago when I got to witness the rebuilding of the Pentagon after 9/11, that they had a system going that is exactly what was happening. Is people were very serious, very intentional, and it was get in, get out, and get her done quickly, and it worked like a machine, and it just was masterful, quite frankly, how it worked. So there's some good things that are going to come out of all this. So
Brian, one real quick question on that, and I'm curious if Scott's seen this, but we've seen a market improvement on safety on our projects in the past couple months. And again, I think it's just people are paying attention to those details. Generally, our projects are safe, but we've seen just fewer of the small first aids, that type of thing. So I'm curious if Scott's seen the same thing.
I can't speak directly to the safety metric, Clay. I can't speak to that specifically, but leveraging off of Jim's comment about focus, there's no question that we are seeing the benefits in the impact of increased and better focus on our field operations. So I think safety would be a perfect metric where you'd see that. Our productivity is obviously being impacted in some areas because of access, communal areas, social distancing. But for those impacts, I've got a lot of comments about the increased attention to detail, to focus, and that there could be some benefits from that. That's a good point, Clay.
Yeah.
Let me have the safety metric. That's something I actually track on a national basis. Our safety adherence has improved 35%. It is incredible. The focus, as Clay said, we are not having those kind of mental error safety issues. And so it's phenomenal what we're seeing. I mean, and as a reaction to COVID, we actually deputized many of our customer service reps to become safety officers. So we have a safety officer now in every single community with a backup for the weekends that would ensure our distancing, our one trade per home, hand washing. When the roach coach would show up, you know, the food had to be prepared in a certain way. So there's such a micro focus on safety right now. It really made a difference.
Wow. So I just want to bring this up. I didn't have it on the list of questions, but yesterday I was speaking to a company in California, and they were telling me, and I asked if this was just in California, and they said, I hope so. But what they were telling me is workers' comp, at least in California, has decided that COVID is going to be part of their metrics. And she said it's a disaster. I mean, it's terrible. Everybody's so frightened now that if anybody gets anything, that's going to be a detriment to their safety metrics. And she said why they decided to do that in a pandemic is beyond her, but it's going to have a significant impact on everybody's safety metrics. Are you hearing anything like that here? Is that happening in Colorado? Do you know, Brian?
You know, it is not, and Scott might be able to talk a little bit about California, but I know that we had a member at our board meeting yesterday, PCL, and their office in California is not going to open up as quick because of those reasons. And so
Yeah.
It is a huge factor when you start to talk about the liability of work comp and the gray areas that come along with that. So AGC is involved nationally, and if it becomes a local issue, I know that we'll be the first ones on board to fight that, because that's just, there's just too many gray areas, and there's too much liability that, you know, you can imagine it'll tie us up in courts for years. So
Yes. Yeah, just kind of a mess. I can't imagine, but all right, I want to give you one more question, and then we're going to start to look at opening up for questions from the audience or from our participants. But I'd like you to talk a little bit about, so there's students that are not in a position right now to, they either hadn't received an offer yet, or their offer had been frozen or rescinded. So these students are sitting here, again, graduating seniors and graduating master's students, but they're really wanting some advice on what they might do during this period of time, how they might stay active, stay connected, any kind of recommendations or advice you might give them about how to, you know, keep active in all of this and just keep pursuing. Or what do you recommend? What do any of you recommend that these students do in the interim while they're waiting for the hiring freezes and the whole market to open up again? Because they sure were in demand, you know, 3-4 months ago, 6 months ago.
Right.
Anyone can start. Yeah.
yeah, I'll go first. You know, the one thing is, you know, the folks that are on the phone, Scott, Jim, and Clay, are hiring these individuals because they're problem solvers, and the problem got a little bit bigger just in the last 3 months. The opportunities aren't as big, but you know, I would just recommend don't give up. You know, it's one of those things that there's companies out there that are going to you know, continue to grow and need them. So it's just going to be a little bit more of a hurdle they're going to have to jump to, you know, to get hired on as an intern or get hired on as full time. But don't give up. The one thing I can offer as AGC is we want to keep you engaged and you know, so the companies know that you're still there and you're still interested in the industry. And would love if you want to come to any of our committee meetings. You know, we'll have, and they're all going to be Zoom. So no matter if you're at, you know, your dorm room or at your apartment, you can Zoom in for our specialty contractors, our, you know, our subcontractor relations, you know, any of the, you know, our diversity meeting, our A3LC, which is architects and engineers. But I'd be willing to open up to those students to call in so they can at least, you know, the industry can see that they're there. They can hear what the challenges the industry is having. So it feels like they you know what's going on. But we'll be back. I mean, the construction's got a little couple, you know, bumps we're taking right now, but it's a great industry to be in, and we can't afford to. You made it this far. We can't afford to lose you now. So, you know, feel free to reach out to me. And its email address is just Brian, BRYAN @agccolorado.org. And I'll make sure to get you on one of the committee meetings upcoming.
Yeah, and AGC is a great resource for the students. And that is one thing that they can look at is to stay connected, become affiliated with the professional associations, with the trade associations, with any of that, anything that keeps them connected. Very good. How about you, Jim? What would be your advice?
My advice is this. I mean, first of all, in any great change comes great opportunity. And those of us on this panel have all been through probably 2, maybe 3 big downturns. I mean, 2008 was the one that just kicked us to our knees. And all of our companies had to adjust to many things in that recession. This is another opportunity to learn and to take what we can do best in this environment. Well, I would say this, continue to connect with those companies. If there was a person you were talking to as a potential manager or HR person, don't stop connecting. always reach out. Don't stand still. This will pass. And just as you're going to judge our companies by the way we reacted to this COVID crisis, you should challenge every company you talk to ask what they did. We're going to ask the same thing. What did you do? Don't just sit and wait. Be active. Lean into change. That's what's going to make you better. So it's good old-fashioned communication. We're as frustrated too that we can't make all the offers that we wanted to. So stay connected. Just stay connected. My biggest piece of advice.
Very good. Scott and Clay?
Sure. Well, I'll take a stab. And I guess my advice is go where the fish are. You know, what I mean by that is 100 years ago when Clay and I both had hair and we worked together when we were young, I moved out here after college and I started fishing. I self-taught myself how to fly fish. I never caught anything. And over time I learned, you know, that to change my paradigm and go where the fish are. And what that means is, you know, where Jim and Brian were talking about, you know, stay active in the network, that's good, but I'd go one step further and talk about being flexible and being tenacious. And 4 months ago, you had some ideas of what you wanted to do this summer. I'm speaking to the students now. The students had some ideas what to do this summer. They had some ideas as to what they wanted to do, what kind of organization they wanted to be a part of. They wanted to stay in Colorado. They wanted to go back home to Kansas City, wherever it may be. But now's the time to be flexible. You need to really reevaluate the market and you know, if there's opportunities in scheduling, in estimating, in VD&C, in renewable energy, in other areas that you weren't necessarily thinking about, now's the time to keep an open mind, be flexible, and be tenacious.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Yeah, I'm going to build on that because the other thing is be flexible on your location. So the days of being able to pick where you're going to live are right now that you need to go where the work is. And that's, I mean, even I have within Mortenson said that if you need me to go someplace else in the US to build something, I'm here. I'm ready to go. And that's a different mentality than a lot of our team members have had to have over the last 10 years. So be flexible on location. I would say that you are going to feel naturally frustrated, and it's going to feel unfair. Why did this happen to you at this time? And you know, you do have to be tenacious. You do have to go, and you have to be willing to take a job at Whole Foods and get it. You know, you got bills to pay. You got to dig in, and you got to get bills to pay. But then in your off hours, you need to be online. You need to be looking at free classwork. You need to be digging into the resources that are out there that are free, so that when you have an opportunity to meet with a company, you can say, this is what I've been doing. I haven't just been sitting around doing nothing, but I've actually been going out. I've got a part-time job to just pay the bills, but then I've been working on, I had a fascination around like BIM and BDC. So I went online and I found a bunch of courses and I self-taught myself how to do this. And that again will show people that you have some gumption and that you're willing to do what it takes to get to work. And people pay attention to that.
Yeah, and so that is the thing, again, that I want to share with the students is that during this period of time when it may be challenging to land a full-time position at this, there's still lots of things and ways that you can be involved. But the big thing is you want to look for all of those opportunities to at least get experience in any way you can. And if that's working in some cases for nothing or helping on a project here or there, or just getting involved with any kind of opportunity that has anything to do with building, that's what people are going to want to see. What did you do during the downtime? How were you training yourself? What additional courses did you take? What did you train yourself in? Where did you volunteer your time? Any of those things, and anything that can show initiative, show leadership, show participation, engagement, and improve your communication skills. Start to research kinds of companies that you never even thought about in the built environment, because there's a lot of things out there that are actually going gung-ho, and they're very, very robust right now in several areas actually. and we've mentioned some tonight, but also industrial, technology, life science, any of those types of projects, we're hearing that they're actually more demand than there was before COVID. So you got to know about those things as well. All right. Cece, I'm going to open it up now for some student questions, if you've got some of those for us.
Sure, there's one. It sounded like you all might be hiring still. And so where do students send their resumes and find jobs within your companies?
Well, I guess I'll clarify. You know, that right now we have a full batch of our interns and our new hires. They're a full batch, so we will continue to be hiring on a balanced basis. But in the short term, if the question is resumes and hiring in the next 3 months, that's not as likely as graduates from the next December class or the spring class. So in the short term, I don't think that Swinnerton is in a position to be looking at new people coming on in the short term, but certainly 6 months and a year from now, we certainly will continue our hiring process.
Yeah, we're the same. All of our offers are normally made by Thanksgiving for the following spring. And so, by Christmas time, we've already made our offers. So, we have not accepted any other resumes and won't be looking at resumes until the fall.
I'll add that. Again, as I said, it depends on the market. There's not a lot of hiring activity currently. However, to direct somebody to look and monitor, our Lennar website has a careers section, and the career section is where I would direct anybody to look for potential opportunity in Lennar.
From AGC, I would kind of piggyback on Jim. We have a website called buildcolorado.com where our membership, puts their different jobs on. And there might not be one that's looking, exactly for a college student, but feel free. I mean, if there's one company looks like they're hiring for a lot of positions, that means they're probably, on a kind of an uptick on some new jobs that are kind of breaking ground. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll be glad to be your conduit to reach out to those companies to give you the right point of contact at those companies. But it's buildcolorado.com, and you'll see it's a job posting board on there where you can kind of look and see what's out there. And maybe it's not, as I think Clay talked about, maybe you're having to do not that exact job that you were thinking that you're going to be taking, but if there's something there that would get you, my start was I was a grease monkey. It was my job to grease the heavy equipment when it came in. And so it gave me appreciation for those when I finally was a construction manager for what it took to keep the equipment moving. So maybe you take a job that's not as glamorous as you were thinking 3 months ago, but it will pay off in the long term. So.
And it's experience. That's very, very important. Any kind of experience that you can get in the industry right now is going to be of benefit to you down the road. Okay, Cece, do we have a couple more questions?
One more. So what is your biggest concern on the job site? Obviously safety is huge. So how are you keeping your workers safer during this time?
I can jump in just from our task force for that question. Is one of the bigger challenges we saw from this last Colorado Department of Public Health update was a 6-foot buffer was needed to be on the job site. And when it comes to commercial construction and all construction, that 6-foot buffer is a safety issue. There's times when you have to be in to help out your teammate. You need to be within that. So. We worked with the Colorado Department of Public Health to, find some PPEs that the employees could wear to be safe, but at the same time be in that 6 foot. We're doing, the construction firms are having a questionnaire as you get onto the site. Either they're asking you to take your temperature before you leave the house, or they're having you, they're taking the temperature there, either subcontractor or the general contractor. And then there's a questionnaire, have you been sick? There's, the kind of the make sure that folks that are coming on, are well. And as I stated earlier, really on construction, it is a team effort. And so everyone's kind of looking out for the other individuals on the site. And so if we have a tendency to sometimes, and when we feel a little sick, to still come in. And now, the message out there. If you're not feeling well, don't come in, because it's just not worth the risk to your fellow, coworkers to come in. So again, the industry's done a great job of being proactive, and as these students, graduate and take jobs or internships, what they're going to see is we don't see a big change, and again, it could change because as we talked about earlier, it's changing by the hour, but we assume that a lot of these protocols that are in place will be throughout the year. So if you're doing an internship, there's a good chance that you'll have a face mask on during the day when you're out in the field. There'll be a screening as you're coming in. But, I think the biggest thing is just, being a leader and making sure you're following those. And so when the other teammates see that you're doing it, they're going to be doing it the same. But again, it's one of those things that we are doing a great job, it seems like, out there in the field right now.
Let me add to that. The other thought is this: if just imagine on a job site where somebody does test positive, and that job site gets shut down, just like a restaurant or a factory or whatever it might be, it is so disruptive to everything involved with that job site. So it's important to keep people safe. From a business continuity perspective, we owe it to each other to be diligent and disciplined with our own associates and with our trade partners to keep us all safe and coming back to work and staying the course. So similar to Brian, amazing efforts in the field, and the focus has been there. I'm very hopeful that will continue as we get more used to this. People don't let their guard down. But it's been amazing how fast the industry has turned and is really focused on what they need to. So it's in us. We can do it. It's just a matter of leadership and commitment.
And one thing to add to that is, we're an essential business and we can't afford to have hiccups. So, tomorrow there's a webinar with the Home Builders Association of Colorado and AGC, and we're teaming up with the residential side and the commercial, and having a webinar on COVID and how we can be, up to par when it comes to safety. So we're all in this together, and we know that we can't, if, one of the industries, if it's civil lets us down, it doesn't matter. We're all going to be shut down. And so for the students to know that the industry really has, is all in on this one, is a peace of mind. Hopefully it is a peace of mind for them.
Yeah. And I just want to point out too that, and Jim, when you said that Lennar decided to hire a chief medical officer, it really kind of brought it out, because the construction industry, safety is number one and always has been for a very, very long time. And, they've improved so much over the years, with the personal protection and all of that. But the interesting thing is this isn't about safety as much as it is health. So the idea that we begin to look at our workforce, not just from a safety perspective, but also this is really driving the point of a health perspective. This could really begin to create a new initiative across the entire industry, quite frankly. And I don't know if it will stick after COVID is long gone, but the idea that that companies, say like Lennar, are actually thinking about it from a chief medical officer perspective, and that's about the health of people, not just an accident or something like that, but this is a different thing. And when we look at, again, the workforce and the aging workforce, this might be an interesting initiative, innovation that comes out of this to serve the construction industry for the long haul. Because it's an issue when I know I had a brother who was a concrete finisher, and his body was dead by about 45. He wasn't dead, but I mean, his body was so beat up. And he said to me, I can't do this much longer. You got to find me an inside job. But that's a real thing for our workforce.
And as an employee of the company, when I heard they hired a chief medical officer, it made me feel really good for the reasons you just said. They're concerned about our health and our not just our workplace safety. And this doctor, he's a high-powered doctor, was available almost 24/7. They get to call his cell phone, get a question about your family or your kids. He'd answer any question, and it really was a very personal approach to our overall health. And it meant a lot to a lot of us. And so I will be interested to see how all that goes as we move forward.
Yeah, interesting. So CT, do we have one last question from students?
We've got one more. It says, what about getting LEED or WELL certified or other industry related certificates at this time? And how would that be viewed for future hiring? Probably great.
I think I guess I'll take that. I think Clay mentioned this earlier, that to take advantage of what might be a soft time to continue to enhance your resume, enhance your skill set, enhance your knowledge base, of course. Whether or not that's through academic accomplishments, whether that's through experience and work skills, I think it's a great time to do that.
Very good.
Yeah, and I would just agree with Scott. Again, it's anything you can do within the industry to learn and to get better. We would look upon that as favorably as well.
Very good.
What specifically, do you have specific certifications that you would recommend?
And we're seeing from AGC Lean Construction, and we're taking that course online. So it's another good opportunity that students can take that in, in the summertime. But again, we continue to see owners are asking for that CM or that Lean, education. Another one that that we did a survey this past year of I think it was 1,800 contractors, and what they show is virtual design and construction. And we're not going to be able. We talk about here in Colorado alone needing 40,000 construction workers, and it's going to be hard to hit that in 6 and 7 years. But we see an uptick in VDC, and so if the students that are on the call today that can, as Clay said, find some of those classes that are in VDC. If that's something they enjoy doing, there's going to be a market for years to come to be that individual that comes on the site that maybe doesn't understand as much as that superintendent, but if their education's in computers and understanding BIM modeling, they're going to have work for many years to come. So.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say is, some of the basics, your OSHA 10, 20, and 30, you could have that out and said you should knock that out over the summer. I mean, anything, DBIA, those kind of classes and training are really bring a lot of value. I want to emphasize though, there are classes online right now that you can take that don't cost anything and that are very specific to what you want to learn. And so don't feel like you have to pay to take some of these classes to make progress in your education.
Yeah, actually the DBIA is going to be conducting some free webinars for students coming up this summer. I know I'm doing one of them. And there's like 4 of us that were doing those. So almost all the associations are providing some free seminars and workshops, and they're out there. So I just we're about out of time here. I want to give the panel one more opportunity to just give last words of wisdom if you have something you'd like to share with them. And I want to thank the students for participating and being on the call with us, and certainly the panelists, but I want to give you all one last opportunity if there's any gem that you'd like to share with them.
I'm not much on gems, Barb. I'm not sure I'm going to satisfy that high bar, but I will say, we reiterate the theme of flexibility, tenacity, and turn off the TV, right? Just too much. You're all smart students. You get good information, but it can just be paralyzing to listen to these talking heads go on and opine about the situation we're in. We're problem solvers. You can help us do that.
Yeah.
I'll go next. I'll say this: no company has too many good people, and DU students, DU graduates are good people. We've all worked with them in many different capacities, whether student groups, student projects, etc. Stay the course. Don't let this knock you off your rails. You're good. Stay connected, stay healthy. Thank you.
Mine would be, and one thing I really like about Mortensen is there's been a focus in on paying attention to your mental health. And so, we've significantly increased the amount of awareness around mental health within our organization. Take care of yourself. If you need help, get out, get resources, talk through these things. Everyone is feeling it. If you're struggling sleeping, everybody is struggling sleeping. It's very unique times. You're not alone and you can get through this. So from a mental health standpoint, just take care of yourself. We'll get through this. and it'll be okay. But it's a rough go right now, and just realize that it's a rough go for everybody, and that it'll be okay. But pay attention to what your body's telling you.
Very good.
From Brian Cook and AGC, the thing, what I would say is be persistent. Right now the Clays, the Gyms, the Scotts are busy, but if you're, looking for a job or looking for an internship, be persistent. You can't just send a resume and think that, I'm good. I sent it to, Swinnerton, but you really need to follow up and don't give up. I mean, because again, we're all busy, but even if you get a hold of Scott and he says, you know what, we're not hiring, ask him, say, do you know any, just all the companies, we all work well together. And I'm sure that Scott would be glad to help you if he knows of a contact at another company saying, I think, Mortenson's in the process of looking at folks. So, ask the question, and industry will help you. We all are in this together. And so continue to be persistent and don't just send a resume and think that's good enough. So.
Very good. So I want to thank you all. I know you're all busy people, and if you're like me, you're actually busier sitting at home. It seems I'm on Zoom all day long, right into the evenings with all kinds of meetings and emergency meetings and all kinds of people communicating these days, which is good. But I thank you for your time. Our students greatly appreciate it. I'll send that message because I know they do. They asked for this. They asked, how can we learn more about what's happening in the marketplace, and I was so happy that we were able to bring you all on board. As you know, you may not know, but we're on a quarter system, so our school students are still in school through like mid-June. We've still got a week of school, a week of finals, and then we're off, but we're very, very happy that we could bring you on before the school year ended. So thank you all for joining us, and for some of you, I hadn't seen you in a while, so it's good to see your face. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.